появился новый объект, слабая красноватая точка. Пока ее наблюдают только астрономы, но уже к маю 2011 года ее можно будет увидеть и невооруженным глазом. Это темная планета, она же Нибиру, таинственная часть нашей Солнечной системы. Вероятность ее существования НАСА признала лишь в 1982 году, при том, что шумеры еще 5000 лет назад уже называли ее крылатым диском и утверждали, что появление Нибиру на небосклоне сулит одни неприятности.
Many theories and projections as to where it may eventually end up. But this one in particular is intriguing, and according to one doomsday theorist, it might just be the one that finally does us in. It's no surprise that Earth is in the shooting gallery of comets, asteroids, and space debris, as we can see clearly from this depiction. This is what happens in space all the time, we just don't see it. Most of these objects, the ones in red, are called sun divers, and are pulled into our sun by its massive gravity, causing us no concern. But last year, NASA detected an object that could be a comet or an asteroid on a path towards Earth. The space agency claims the mysterious object will pass safely at a distance of nearly 32 million miles from Earth. But one self-proclaimed astronomer has come up with an alternative theory, suggesting that the asteroid could crash into Earth, wiping out cities, continents, and even causing a mega tsunami. The strange object was discovered last year, and it is theorized that over the last 5 years it has traveled inward toward the center of our solar system, passing just under the main asteroid belt and under the orbit of Mars until it will swing just inside Earth's own orbit. The object, which is a blurred line between an asteroid and a comet, was discovered by NASA's NEOWISE mission. Self-proclaimed Russian astronomer Dr. Diomin Damir Zakharovich has said it is heading straight towards our planet. He states, "The object left the Nibiru system in October when Nibiru began spinning counterclockwise around the Sun. Since then, NASA has known it will hit Earth, but they are refusing to tell people. If the asteroid hit Earth," he says, "it could destroy cities, countries, or cause a tsunami that could take out an entire continent. We are all in peril," he states with a stern look on his face. NASA, on the other hand, does not think the object will hit Earth. Instead, it is saying it will pass nearly 32 million miles away from our planet. The trajectory of the object is well understood, and the object is not a threat to the Earth for the foreseeable future, says NASA. What NASA scientists do know is that the object is relatively large, about a half a mile across. It is also quite dark, reflecting only a few % of the light that falls on its surface. Its body resembles a comet in its reflectivity in orbit, but it appears to lack the characteristic dust and gas cloud tail that defines a comet. The object could have cometary origins, said Deputy Principal Investigator James Gerbs Bauer at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. But according to reports, Dr. Zakharovich has said that his data reveals a very different background. He claims that the comet or asteroid originated from the planet Nibiru. He says that the object left the Nibiru system in October when Nibiru began spinning counterclockwise around the Sun. Some conspiracy theorists believe that the planet Nibiru is set to enter our solar system this year, after being driven here by the gravitational force from a binary star twin of our Sun. They go on to claim that this accounts for the strange weather patterns, uptick in earthquakes, and volcanoes worldwide. Nibiru, sometimes referred to as Planet X, is a hypothesized planet, small star, or mini-solar system on the edge of our own solar system. NASA itself claims that there is evidence that there is something large at the edge of our solar system that is causing perturbations in the planetary orbits and possibly causing a large amount of asteroids to be hurled towards our sun. Some of these come into contact with Earth's orbit, such as the Chelyabinsk meteorite that exploded over Russia on February 15th of 2013. The existence of an extrasolar entity large enough to cause these problems was also proposed by astronomers at Caltech in January last year. Conspiracy theorists believe that the gravitational influence of the rogue planet Nibiru disrupted the orbits of other planets hundreds of years ago, and perhaps even caused the extinction of the dinosaurs. They go on to surmise that the next disruptive passage into the solar system could happen at any time. So get in the comment section and let us know what you think. Do you think that this rogue asteroid could cause Earth a problem? Do you believe that the Nibiru system will finally make its grand entrance sometime in 2017? Do you think that Nibiru is at the center of all of the weather anomalies, the uptick in earthquakes and volcanism that we're seeing worldwide? Please let us know. Thank you for watching, and we'll be back with another video very soon.
On today's program, I interview Marshall Masters. Marshall Masters is a former CNN Science Features news producer, freelance writer, television analyst, and the publisher of MarshallMasters.com. Since 1999, he has been researching Earth changes and Nibiru flyby-related topics including sustainable survival communities, catastrophic crop circles, impact events, and future technologies. To learn more about Marshall Masters, visit MarshallMasters.com. In this presentation, we discuss his article, Is Planet X Nearing Perihelion? And how to prepare for the coming worldwide mass extinction event known as Planet X. Like the show, comment below, subscribe to the channel, and enjoy the show. Marshall Masters, welcome to the program.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be on.
Marshall, before we get going here, is Planet X and Nibiru the same thing?
Yes. And actually, what we talk about is the Planet X system, because we have a brown dwarf star that's a small companion star to Sol, which is called Nemesis. When I was in high school, many eons and hairlines ago, that was the big rage. Everybody was talking about, do we live in a binary star system? Because 90% of the solar systems in our galaxy have multiple suns. And there's a lot to indicate that we as well, are living in a binary or maybe even a trinary system. And Nemesis is a mini constellation. Nemesis is in this comet-like orbit clockwise around the sun, spends most of its time in the southern skies below us. When it bounces up into the northern skies, reaches its point of perihelion, its closest distance to the sun, and then heads back south, that's when things start to really go south for us. And that's the bad time. And so it has planets and moons around it. And like, in our solar system, we have major planets, we have minor planets, all right? And the same with that. I talk about the Nemesis star and its three major planets, which are innermost, which is Helion, and Helion is a bright gaseous star-like planet. And then there's Arbota, which is the second out from Nemesis, and that is a small rocky planet and habitable. And then the third, which is Nibiru. Nibiru is the outermost, and actually the name Nibiru stands for the planet of crossing. And so when we're talking about Nibiru and we're talking about Nemesis, we're talking about the same mini constellation. the term Planet X was really brought into existence by the astronomer Percival Lowell. And there's been an ongoing search for this thing for hundreds of years. When we talk about Uranus, that was the first planet that was discovered with a telescope. But Neptune was the first planet discovered with mathematics. And what happened was that they knew where Neptune was because of the perturbations they observed in the orbit of Uranus. And literally just, zoomed right in on it mathematically. And once they made that determination, it was very, very quickly discovered. And then Neptune was observed to have similar perturbations. And then astronomers back then understood that there was this ongoing search for Neptune's perturber, which the term Planet X just simply means there's something big out there, but we're not exactly sure as to where to find it, but we know it exists by the manner in which it interacts with other objects in our solar system. And so that was the big reason why Percival Lowell founded the Lowell Observatory. So that gives you an idea of what we're looking at. We have a mini constellation coming through. That's the reason why I call it the Planet X system. It's just, when I first started, it was just Planet X. But as we learn more about what we're dealing with, then I started calling it a system because that's really what it is. It's a mini, or more specifically, it's a mini constellation.
When I was a kid in the mid-'80s, we all talked about Planet X. We understood it to be the undiscovered planet beyond Pluto.
Correct. And so, yep, you guys were, and interestingly enough, there was an awful lot of really good reporting in mainstream media about Planet X. And then it just all died. And it didn't die from a lack of interest. It died because there was a concerted effort to kill the topic. And that really came into being after the 1983 IRAS mission. And whistleblowers who saw the original files on this, and this comes from different whistleblowers with same access to the same files. And these gentlemen, Bob Dean is one. I think he's a very, very fine gentleman. And he's really getting on up there. I don't even know if he's still with us. But there were others. And interestingly enough, they weren't the officers who knew this information. They were non-commissioned officers, the guys with all the chevrons up and down on their slaves. And because these are the guys that they would put in the secrets vaults, and they would have the key to all the secrets. Now, if you were an officer, you had different levels of security, and you could see this, but you couldn't see that. But for these sergeants who were in charge of maintaining all of this, they had the absolute highest security level because they had the key to the kingdom. They could see anything. And they didn't have a lot of folks coming down and asking them for things as a rule. So what do? You're sitting there kind of bored, and you start pulling out file jackets and readings. And these guys would start reading about all of this, and it would just drop them on their head. And because IRAS found Nemesis, and it just showed up like a sore thumb. Now, it was in the infrared. Now, here's the thing about brown dwarf stars. And they're actually stars that have just been recently discovered. And what we're finding is that they're far more common in our solar system, in our galaxy, than our type of star. Far more common. And these things are, in terms of their mass, They're about 10 to 15 times that of Jupiter and several times larger than Jupiter in radius. But when you compare that with a sun the size of ours, that's like saying, you got a hummingbird orbiting a buffalo. So, because mass is really what determines it. And the thing about a brown dwarf star is that they can support life, but they're very dirty. And the reason why they're dirty, and that in turn makes them incredibly difficult to observe. That's the reason why it's a Johnny-come-lately to astronomy, is that they ignite like our sun did, and then, however, they lack the ability to maintain a nuclear furnace, so to speak. And so our sun continues burning brightly because it has the mass. The brown dwarf doesn't. And so it's more like the charcoal briquettes in your backyard barbecue, and they get white and then they bank off, and if you're into barbecue, that, you want to wait until your coals get it, nice and white. And then, they're at their peak, and that's when you put on the meat, because then they start banking off and you're not going to wind up with an overcooked outer and an undercooked inner.
Well, and all the gases have burned off, and you're just dealing with hot carbon.
Yeah, exactly. But in space, what happens with these things is they have this that happens, and then they're perpetually shrouded with all of this dust and debris that is created by their ignition, which never is able to settle into anything. And so they can be observed in the infrared, but in terms of the visible light spectrums, which is an incredibly narrow band, there's something that, no, you're not going to see them until they're fairly close in, and that's the case with this. Now, what I do with the testing, and this article that I just put up is Planet X nearing perihelion. There are a lot of folks, even other researchers out there, and it's very nice to hear. And they compliment me on my image analysis method, which I do is called gamma testing. And gamma testing is something we can do with digital images. You cannot do it with celluloid images, with film. And so with gamma testing, it's like, you have a stereo system, and you can set your different frequencies, highs, lows, bass, treble, all these things, and you can play around with all that. But then you have the big volume knob, and when you turn that down, turns down everything. When you turn it up, turns up everything. But there's some things that'll stand out. So you turn down the volume knob, and, you're listening to Bee Gees or something, and what do you get? Boom, 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 boom. You're getting the bass drum. You're getting something that can really punch through in that very limited, amount of power. Well, when I'm doing gamma testing, what I'm doing is it's just like on your stereo system. You're just cranking down the volume until all you hear left is the drum, or the, what other instrument can get past it. Now, in terms of images, that gets them down to, I reduce them down to hot images and cold images. And a hot image is one that is generating light into the lens of the camera. All right. Our sun is a hot object. It generates light directly into the camera lens. Now, cold images are lens flares and other forms of aberrations. And lens flares and aberrations are simply misdirection of other light sources. And so when you crank down the volume, because they're not generating, they're not sitting there thump, the thump, the thump, the thump like the bass drum, okay? They're going to fade out. They're going to disappear pretty quickly. And, This is because lens flares are something that are going to happen directly in front of the camera lens or inside the lens barrel itself, somewhere in the prisms. And so what I do is I use gamma, all right, which is purely a digital thing. Again, it will not work if you go out with an old Kodak camera and take a picture. No, that you don't have gamma settings with that. Gamma is only something that is new to digital photography. And that's really all you see anymore today. And unless you buy a coffee table book on Ansel Adams. But I just cranked the gamma down. And when I crank down the gamma, and if your listeners go to my website at marshallmasters.com, actually you're going to see what a gamma test produces right there in the image that it's right at the beginning, the one where the image says, is Planet X nearing perihelion? That is exactly what a gamma test is. And you're going to see the sun, and next to it, you're going to see another hot object. And that object has a blue tint to it. The sun has a red tint to it. And this is the reason why I'm saying, is Planet X nearing perihelion? In other words, is it approaching that point in its orbit, which is 3,600 years? It's a long period, elliptical orbit. It spends most all of its time in the southern skies, all right, until it swoops up around the sun. And it's orbiting the sun actually on two axes. It's going up and down like a yo-yo, but this yo-yo is steeply inclined. And at the same time, it's going around the sun. All right. And so it's tracking around the sun about every 380 days, opposed to our 365, which is the reason why even the ancients in the Colburn Bible tell us that it dances around behind the sun. We see it, we don't see it, we see it, we don't see it, we see it. But then eventually, as our orbits merge, all right, then we see it. Okay. And it just pops out from behind the sun. So if it's reaching its point of perihelion, what that says is that we're going to start getting into this phase where it is going to pop out from behind the sun so that everybody's seeing it. Now, we have folks that are, reporting videos all the time. And what you have to understand is something that's behind the sun, the only time you're going to be able to see it is near sunrise and near sunset. So I get these folks, debunkers, and they go, well, I went out in my backyard this afternoon and I took a look. I didn't see anything. Well, of course you didn't see anything because the sun's too bright and you're not going to see it. And they don't understand that sunrise, sunset, simple difference. And the point I'm making in this is I have been tracking Nemesis, and I've been doing it for a very long time.
This picture, which will be on the video, so people can see the picture right now,
right,
is Planet X nearing perihelion. Are you sure this isn't Mercury or some kind of gravitational reflection?
No, it's not Mercury. I mean, you go into, the easiest thing to do is you just go into Solar System Scope, and people can go online and do that. But I actually use Starry Night Pro, and that's the program that I use for this. And I go and look, but I mean, I've been looking, at Venus and Mercury for a long time. And I want to tell you, Venus and Mercury do never look that big, period. Okay? And I've seen them in the gamma testing, so I mean, for me, it's like, I will do this. I'll go to Starry Night, but, I already know it's not Venus or Mercury or something else because it's a hot object. All right. If it's something else, then it'll be a cold object and it won't pass muster with the gamma test. Now, The interesting thing is we're continually tracking this object, which is to the sun's 3 o'clock relative to the horizon. Now, out in space, the ecliptic, the plane of our solar system, puts that more up, say, around 1:30, okay, relative to the sun. But we see it at 3 o'clock because the Earth is tilted. All right, and so our horizon is not the same thing as the ecliptic, the plane of our solar system. I have a video, Planet X System Update number 4, and actually it's in that article, and people can watch it. And we have from Spain, Brazil, and other places where we're tracking the same object in the same exact place at different times of the year. Every case, it is not Venus, it is not Mercury. Those are very small relative to this.
Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. Sagan.
Oh, God, you're... Okay, so you want billions and billions and billions of facts.
Nope, just an extraordinary one.
Okay.
Is this gamma shot your extraordinary evidence?
I think that I'm doing the best that I can, being that I don't have the resources of a government, and I'm just relying on what you have. But there are, in my videos, when I put up something in my video, it's like, it's a challenge to debunkers, disprove this. So in that regard, if you see it in one of my videos, yeah, it's extraordinary.
Basically, you're saying there's a conspiracy by NASA to cover this up.
Oh, yeah. And it goes much higher than NASA.
I just watched the movie Interstellar. Actually, I haven't seen the last 30 minutes, so don't blow it for me. But
oh, no. Okay. All right. Yeah. I won't do that.
Fantastic show so far, right?
It is. Oh.
I'm just riveted, and I have to take breaks because I have to cool off. It's just too much. Are they just not telling us about Planet X because, just like in Interstellar, they didn't think that panic made any difference?
Well, in Interstellar, oh, golly gee, I can't answer that question because you haven't seen the end of the show. I'm not going to kill it for you. But let me, and I do love that. I've probably seen that movie a dozen times. I just do enjoy it. And I especially love, the human angle that they put on it. Now, the reason why we're not being told is we are going to go through a worst case scenario flyby. Now, this has been well documented in the Colburn Bible, which is an ancient wisdom text, and the first parts of it were written about the same time as the 5 books of Moses. And while the Hebrews were wandering in the Sinai, and it tells us that the sinking of Atlantis, Noah's flood, and Exodus were all the result of flybys of this mini constellation system through the core of our system. And the reason why you have some that are best case scenario and worst case scenario, I mean, they're all going to hurt. But there's a particular part, a segment of this orbit, which is from its point of perihelion to where it arcs down to the ecliptic, the plane of the system. And when it does, it comes up and it'll pass over our heads. And when it crosses the ecliptic, it'll do it between the orbits of Mars and Jupiter. And this is the phase of the orbit that's very destructive for us. I call it the kill zone. And during Exodus, Earth was on the opposite side of the sun, while Nemesis was in the kill zone when it crossed the ecliptic. This time, we're going to be on the same side of the sun. And the last time that happened was Noah's flood. All right, so we are going to have a pole shift event. And for those that are, read their Bibles. And to me, the Bible, I treat it as a wisdom text. And in that regard, there's a tremendous amount of preparatory information in there about what's going to happen. Days of darkness is something that is definitely going to happen because, while Nemesis at the ecliptic is between the orbits of Mars and Jupiter, its outermost planet, Nibiru, will be passing between Earth and the Sun, somewhere between the orbits of Earth and Venus. And when that happens, it's, when we have, it's just simply going to be so massive, so large that when it passes in front of the sun, it's going to completely blot out all of the light. And then we're going to have a period of pitch black that is going to be quite disturbing. And then this is when the pole shift's going to happen, because then several bodies in this system will gain a what I call lithosphere lock on the surface of our planet. And that will then cause the shift. And you have a magnetic shift, and then you have a crustal shift. We're already in the process of a magnetic shift. All right. And that's the reason why they're having to go out and renumber at airports, the runways, because the runways are all set on magnetic compass settings. And those are changing. And so they have to repaint those and republish. And this is, when you look at what's happening, it's moving around a lot more. So the magnetic pole shift is in its early infancy beginning to do. Then also we would have a flip of the magnetic poles. All right. So where north is now south and south is north. And that's going to happen. This has happened in the deep time history of the planet. And there are those that say it takes, tens of thousands of years for that to happen, but they have found basalt flows, all right, volcanic basalt flows, where they could see that a magnetic reversal occurred in just simply maybe a matter of hours or days. So we're up against it with a really negative flyby. We're going to have a worst case scenario. Now, during the pole shift event, the story of Noah's flood, what we learned, there's almost 200 different deluge accounts. All right. Once you get out of the Bible and it's no longer Noah's flood, it's called the deluge. And the deluge was really the big slosh, because what happens is when the lithosphere of the planet moves, all right, the water is just going to slosh up onto the continents. All right. And you saw that in the movie 2012. They demonstrated, what that looks like, and those huge waves coming in and hitting and just, taking out vast amounts of shorelines. Well, most of humanity lives along a shoreline or within 50 miles of it. And these are all going to be death zones. So what the elites really want to do is they want to reduce. This is a eugenics agenda. They want to reduce the population because it's really difficult to manage 7 billion people. You don't need 7 billion or 8 billion people to live like a prince and to be a god on your own planet. You can do it with a lot fewer people, and it's a lot easier to manage. So they're suppressing knowledge of this, not because they don't want to cause a panic, all right? If they were to make it, people, they would start moving inland, things would be shifting. That would not be good for their investments, and they're not going to be able to buy as many yachts and big yachts and have their little junkets and fun and do whatever they're doing. But you're going to have more people surviving the event, which means in a time when they're going to have to regain control of the planet. We do live on a slave planet. When 1,000 people own 90% of the world, okay, that's a slave planet. When, you can count the number of people on both hands that control as much wealth as the third poorest of the world's population. That's a slave world. Period. Let's not put happy faces on it. My God, here in America, half of all Americans, over half of all Americans, do not have the money in the bank right now to write a $500 check. That's a fact. We're all strapped and we're living paycheck to paycheck. So, and where's all this wealth? It didn't evaporate. It went into the hands of those that are controlling. So during this tribulation period, there's going to be a destruction. And one of the things that's going to be destroyed is all of these elaborate control systems that the elites who run the world, like puppeteers, all of their control systems are going to be completely and utterly shattered. Now, they're going to be living in their deep underground bases that are 1 mile to 2 miles deep. And they're going to live very well. And these things were, the money is that they sponged out of us in any number of different ways is what's fueling the building of these things. All right. And you have, they come out and they go, gee, we just lost billions and trillions of dollars. We don't know where they went. What do you know? That was what a big accounting error, I mean, it's like, if you said that to the IRS, they'd laugh at you and then nail you for everything you got, including your genetic code. And so they're going to be in their deep underground bunkers, and they have their seed vaults and storages and whatever. And so their plan is when things start settling down, and they'll know when things are going to settle down, they're going to come up to the surface and see who's left. Now, Georgia Guidestones tell us that, this is a 10 Commandments for the 21st century. Some call it that. And it's written in 8 different languages. And the first one says, keep humanity under 500 million. Well, it doesn't tell us how we get there. It doesn't tell us how 9 in 10 of 90% of us are going to perish and what's going to come. It just says, keep it under 500 million. In other words, once you're there, you're there. Don't let the population exceed 500 million for the whole world. And live in harmony with nature. Well, that's what's, the vast majority is along the shorelines. And when I look at people who are in denial, I mean, the 3 big reasons people are going to die during the coming Planet X tribulation is denial, procrastination, and location. Those are going to be the 3 principal causes of death. All right. Again, denial, procrastination, and location. If you can get people to deny